Bon après-midi, mesdames et messieurs. Bienvenue à cette grande finale du championnat universitaire 2021. On est dans la division Open. Les deux équipes qui s'affronteront ici à Brampton, Ontario. Université de Montréal du côté gauche portant les chandails bleus et du côté droit portant les chandails jaunes. Queen University. Alors, c'est un match de 70 minutes. Les deux équipes qui en sont à leur première finale depuis un certain temps. Alors, une tonne d'action. C'était un excellent spectacle. Les deux équipes ont bataillé ferme pour se forger une place dans cette grande finale. Mon nom est Étienne Fournier. Je serai votre co-animateur. I will be your co-host for this grand final Open Division CUUC 2021. And don't worry, I will not be alone. Naomi will co-host with me. Thanks for being there, Naomi.
Happy to be here and excited to be watching this final gold medal match between Queen's University in yellow on the right-hand side of your screen up against the University of Montreal in blue.
Montréal qui commence ses hostilités en offensive, défensive de zone de Queen. Raphaël Salva avec le 10, Romain Éloire, deux artilleurs en chef de l'offensive montréalaise, Salva, Éloire. Aussi Massy qui a un rôle important à jouer. Il n'y a pas beaucoup d'espace. Belle pression défensive de l'équipe de Queen avec leur défensive de zone. On fait de petites passes, Salva et Éloire. On connaît la valeur du 10. On trouve Sénéchal en soutien. Patiemment à Montréal. Lancé sous coupe. On trouve le numéro 19, Saint-Pierre-Naraud. Attrape ses 10 qui doit toutefois s'étendre au sol pour le rattraper. Autour de Sénéchal. À Salva. Salva le gaucher. Vraiment en sous-coupe. Mais Lalonde Landry, Thomas, celui-ci porte le numéro 0. Il y a aussi son frère, l'autre Lalonde Landry. C'est lui qui attrape le point pour le premier point de ce match et de l'Université de Montréal. C'est Raphaël Lalonde Landry, le numéro 24, qui inscrit le premier point. C'est 1-0 pour Montréal qui confirme cette possession offensive.
So Montreal really working it all the way up the field there. Lots of patience against a zone from Queen's University, three-person cup. And we did see in that point a few upside-down throws, some scoobers, some hammers. We did see that in the semifinal that Montreal played against Manitoba in the last round as well. They're very confident with those throws, and they don't seem to be fazed by the wind. I'd say those upside-down throws can be difficult to execute when they're getting pushed downwind, but a little bit different from earlier in today. We are seeing a change in the direction of the wind. Previously, it's been all left to right of your screen, upwind, downwind, and a lot of games today have been decided by the flip at the beginning of the game, but here I think we might see a bit more of a crosswind. So still primarily from the left-hand side of your screen, that's the upwind end zone, but there's a bit more of a cross, which will make all of our throws just a little bit more difficult, and our players will have to readjust strategically in that way. So Queens now on offense.
Kind of a poachy zone defense by Montreal.
But Queens confidently moving that through. Lots of quick movement. Backhand into space and a layout. Unfortunately, just out of the hands. Doesn't look like there's going to be a call here, so we will turn it back over to Montreal, who will have to work it up the full field.
La Combourgois, numéro 56, qui remettra le disque en jeu. Montréal qui doit affronter non seulement le vent de face, mais en plus la défensive de zone de Queens. C'est Massy avec le disque. La Combourgoine. Massy ça a été bloqué par la main du défenseur de Queen. Great hand block by Queen on the doorstep of the goal line. So let's see how Montreal defends in a very close situation.
Yeah, it looks like we'll have number 19, Wilkie Lewis, picking up here. Few years under his belt here with Queen's Ultimate. Tough spot right on the cone, but able to dish it in right away to number 8. That's Tyler Gunasakura, and that's a goal for Queen. So we are all tied up.
And Naomi, you mentioned that you had the opportunity to chat with Queens coach just before the game. And Queens that ended with an 0-3 games yesterday. So they lost all their 3 games, but somehow, someway, were able to make their way through the final by a major upset in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think yesterday we've spoken about this in our earlier streams. The wind has been a huge factor in a lot of games, and their losses yesterday were not that significant, with the exception of dropping a big game to Laval. But their other games were close, lost by 1, lost by 3, that kind of thing against other games, other teams in their pool. And they were able to pull things together. And their coach, Pete Galbraith, was saying that today it was just about confidence. It was about getting used to the wind and trusting their throws, trusting the work that they've put in this season and in past seasons, and being able to feel more confident in taking the shots that they know that they have and he knows that they have. So I think we will be seeing more of that in this final game.
But Noir qui dégage missile autoportant dans la zone de points. Mais le vent a poussé le disque hors de portée, en dehors du terrain. Ça sera disque Queens à leur propre zone de points. So Montreal whole line having to defend quickly. First break opportunity for Queens.
And I think just a little bit of a wind bounce there. Lewis going up the line, and it bounced in and out of the hand, so Montreal will get another chance.
Éloigné de la main gauche, alimente Sénéchal. Éloigné qui est un droitier, mais qui est allé de la gauche sur ce lancer. So a righty going lefty for a little quick backhand feeding Sénéchal for Montreal's second point of this game. 2-1 for the Blue Jerseys.
We've seen a lot of that today. A lot of scoring in the downwind end zone over here on the right side of our screen. So one of the key things that we'll need to see is that upwind score and upwind defensive break for teams to create a bit of separation, which has been very, very challenging today.
So this final will last for 70 minutes. Maximum, unless one of the two teams reaches the 13 points mark, which we have not seen today so far. With the windy condition, the point have tendencies to be longer than average. So Montreal will be pulling upwind. So unlike Queens, who had 3 losses yesterday, Montreal has won all of their 3 games. And all 3 games were won by only 1 point. So very well fought day for Montreal. But still, all games were tight.
So Lewis looking right away into the end zone, and a bit of an overshot, but not a bad look. Montreal is going to have to work it up the whole field if they're going to want to get that upwind break. So it's a good opportunity for...
I believe there was a call on the throw, a foul call.
Interesting.
Yohan Kohanai, number 22 on Montreal.
So it's an uncontested foul, so it will go back to the thrower with no stall count. So he'll have a full 10 stalls to make a good decision.
So Montreal, you see by the positioning of the 2 last men back wearing the blue jerseys are expecting a long throw and ready to defend it. Bisson about 10 yards back of his player, ensuring it will be a double matchup if there's any long. So Bisson is really watching the long games here. Nice grab
Number
by
8.
Queen.
Looking back into the middle for a reset, but instead trying to throw it up the line. And again, that's something that we've seen a lot today. That upline flick throw is quite challenging. And it looks like a retracted foul call, so we will continue playing, and Montreal will be on offense.
D'accord, Bourgoin qui remet en soutien. Numéro 11, Charles Gay. Thomas Lalonde, Landry. Maintenant, alimente Bisson qui feinte. Montréal qui doit négocier avec la zone défensive de zone de Queen. Bisson qui se faufile, alimente Lalonde, Landry qui feinte Lalonde, mais retient son geste. Maintenant, la gomme, Bourgoin qui trouve Massy. On travaille Est-Ouest du côté des Bleus pour l'instant. On gagne quelques verges. Maintenant, Guy qui est en possession du 10. Oh! Bisson qui échappe cette passe. Queen qui reprendra les hostilités. Massy là, qui a voulu replacer le disque où il était, mais... So, where will the disc be put back into play? About, what, 9.5 inch closer. Maybe 9.25 closer. Not sure from our perspective.
And a nice bid attempt. Montreal playing some really tight handler defense on the Queen's handlers and creating a lot of pressure, making those throws way more difficult in the wind.
Oh, that was bump, but caught back by Coroner. Coroner. Encore avec le disque, cherche une option. Patient, il commence à se faire tard, là. Le lancer marteau dans les airs. Oh, c'est attrapé par le numéro 16, Étienne Lamarche. Sécurise ce lancer un peu désespéré de Coroner. Montréal à sa propre ligne de brick. La Combourgoine qui donne des conseils, ses directives à Lalonde Landry qui s'offensive, remet à Massy. Massy coincé le long de la ligne. Cherche une option. Yvon Marteau trouve la Combourgoine, c'est complété d'un côté à l'autre. Et c'est la bombe! Ça flotte. C'est dévié par le numéro 19 de Queen et ça terminera en un revirement favorisant les chandails jaunes. Turnover en faveur de Montréal. On est à moins de 10 verges de la ligne de points. En mesure d'inscrire le premier point bris contre le vent. Temps d'arrêt demandé par Coroner. So each team are allowed to 2 timeouts per half. So that's a great call by Coroner. Just Montreal being in a great position to score a breakpoint upwind. So they really want to close that deal. But we've seen it many times today and yesterday. You call a timeout, you're in a great position. You need to nail it. But unfortunately, due to the wind condition, it's still hard. Even though you have a great plan, everybody knows what to do. You need to execute and to close the point. Which is what Montreal will attempt to do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Queens does to try and defend this whatever play, end zone play Montreal calls here. I think Queens, they know how critical it is for them to make sure that this isn't a point because as we've seen throughout the weekend, those upwind points are so important for being the make or break of whether you can win a game or not.
So Coroner is very well known for his defensive skills. He's not a bad handler, but he's not the key handler of this defensive line. So let's see what the plan will be. On his left and on his right, he has Massy and Lacombe-Bourgoin, which are the key handlers of his Montreal defensive line. Lalonde Landry suspectfully with the 2 hands in his back. Will he be the target? He's moving left and right, trying to get open. Massy now with the disc. Massy, lancé droit. Bisson plonge. C'est attrapé, confirmé par les observateurs. Montréal qui inscrit le premier point bris de ce match. Se forge une avance de 2 points. C'est 3-1 pour les Bleus.
And a nice defensive attempt by Queens. I think they overloaded the open side with an extra poach defender there. And that's a great way to try and stuff this kind of offensive push. Unfortunately, you had a blue shirt sneak in behind and get that goal there. But that's great news for Montreal. That's going to be something that Queens will certainly have to come back from and win that one back to get this game back on serve.
Bisson really had to lay it out to catch that disc because it was a good idea, but the execution upwind is always a challenge. So let's give all the credits to Bisson for securing that break point. Alors, mon nom est Étienne Fournier. Si vous avez des commentaires sur le match ou sur la description, n'hésitez pas à le faire sur Twitter, sur mon compte @etfournier63. Ça nous fera plaisir de vous lire. So if you have any comments in regards of our commentator, oh, was that a drop pull? Was that caught? Montreal is challenging that. I don't think the observers were in the best position to get a read. Well, there's 4 observers, not 2. They will have to talk.
From my perspective, I was going to say I think it bounced.
See?
So it's a good thing that there are 4 observers on the field. One day we'll have instant replay from up here in the booth, but for now, so for anyone at home, if you don't know what that means, if the pull was dropped, that means it would be a turnover, and Montreal in blue would get a chance to go into the end zone right from the end zone line.
That's how tight. We're one foot apart, and we had different perspective on that. So that's how tight it was, eh?
Yeah, but more context with that now as well, looking at how Montreal just scored the more difficult upwind break. It's a lot easier for them to score downwind. And look at that. It's called as a dropped pull. So Montreal has a chance to score a second in a row right outside of the end zone.
Lacombe-Bourgoin reprendra le disque pour peut-être un deuxième point bris vers Montréal. Et voilà, Lalonde-Landry qui alimente Massy et donne un 3e point consécutif à Montréal. 2e point bris consécutif Montréal qui se forge une avance de 3 points, 4-1 dans ce match final du championnat universitaire canadien 2021. So when you coach and you tell your player, give your player some advice on how to manage a pull, well, you got to make sure you catch it like if your mom's life depends on it. Yeah, you cannot drop it. But we've all did it once, you know, drop a pull, and you learn from that. So
absolutely
unfortunate circumstances for Queen, which kind of cost them a second consecutive break point. Now they're trailing by 3 in this final.
They will be going downwind, though, so this will be sort of an easier offensive push for the team in yellow. They do have a bit of a climb to get back on serve, but I think it's definitely still possible. We've seen today there's really unpredictable conditions, and we've seen teams come back throughout the weekend. We know that Queens had a bit of a rough start to the weekend, but they do have a lot of skills in their tool belt. So we'll see what happens here. Number 19, Lewis, picking up the disc.
Montreal playing person to person. It's long, it's floating. Rumble in the end zone.
Huge.
No call, then confirm.
And that's exactly what Queens is going to have to do. Those one-pass goals, it might not be pretty, but those quick goals is how they're going to have a better chance of catching up to Montreal at this point.
So Montreal's O-line will be receiving downwind. So Naomi, as you just mentioned, the resiliency of Queens. Yesterday having a bad day, but today they really stepped up. Creating some upset and beating Waterloo, if I'm not mistaken, in the semifinal.
Yep.
So it's not because you were 0-3 on Saturday that you're going to be kicked out of the final on Sunday. And Queen is the living proof of that.
And Queens has been here before. They're a program that has existed for many, many years. There's a long-standing coaching staff, and that plays into a lot of your ability to perform in these big games. I think there's obviously a lot of pressure on both the players and the coaches, but certainly the players in that position. And it's all about being able to dial it in and wipe any mistakes and be ready for what's next. So Queens here putting that zone back on to try and stuff the Montreal offense.
Salva à Massy. Massy qui décoche une bombe. Ça terminera son cours à l'extérieur du terrain. C'est Félix Côté-Dubuc qui était la cible de ce lancer de Massy. Montréal qui doit se défendre. On opte pour la défensive. 1 pour 1.
Queens offense looking a little stagnant. Forcing the thrower, that's number 7, Will Dixon, to just put something out into space. And it's so tough, the flick on that upwind far side. It probably didn't float for as long as he wanted to, but now Montreal will have to work it from about half field.
Édouard remet le disque en jeu. Trouve Salva. Alimente Massy par la suite. Salva, offensive. Lancé sous coupe, on trouve Édouard. Édouard feinte, retient son geste, alimente le numéro 2. On enchaîne du côté montréalais, maintenant Sénéchal. Remet Salva au point de brique. Maintenant Édouard. L'artilleur en chef. Massy feinte le lancer marteau. Cherche une option. Il va pour le lancer marteau finalement. C'était dur de juger ce disque, là, le numéro 19, Saint-Pierre-Naraud, qui s'en allait du côté éloigné, mais la trajectoire du disque est influencée par le vent et finalement se retrouver avec le disque au-dessus de la tête. Ça a été difficile de l'attraper. En plus, il tombait en lame. Presque impossible.
McLean with the disc. That's Dixon looking deep, doesn't like what he sees. And a bit of a miscue there. Turnover. Oh, there's a call. I think it's a...
Is that an injury call?
Yeah, I think it's an injury call, yeah.
So Montreal will do a substitution also. Number 19, Saint-Pierre-Naraud, will leave his place to Thomas Lalonde-Landry, wearing number 0.
And Queens will bring number 19, Lewis, back onto the field.
So it's sunny in Brampton, Ontario, and we appreciate every pieces of heat we can have this afternoon because the wind kind of brings the temperature down. I could almost smell winter earlier today. Winter is coming. I think there's a series called Game of Thrones who's quoting that typical Canadian quote, winter is coming, if you're a Game of Thrones fan. Great bid by Edouard, just slightly short. Queen having to deal with the person-to-person defense by Montreal in their own end zone, and it's turfed 4 yards away from their end zone. Montreal in a great position to score their 5th point of the game. Edouard pivoting, giving himself some room. Now it's Salva just dishing it to Massy, waiting. There was a call, there was a pick call, I believe. Massy was oddly alone. But his defender was victim of a pick. Montréal En bonne posture pour inscrire leur 5e point. Salva, de sa main gauche, alimente Thomas Lalonde-Landry. Et voilà, c'est confirmé. Montréal maintient une avance de 3 points, mène 5-2 après avoir inscrit 2 points bris plus tôt dans le match.
That's a nice left-handed around into the break space. Lots of angle on that throw and way out of the reach of the Queens defender. That's a really, really nice throw. So we are 5-2 for Montreal. Queen is down a handful of breaks at this point. They are going to score, looking to score downwind. So we'll see what they put out this time. They've been playing primarily sort of a vertical offense, with Montreal playing a lot more person-to-person defense than we've seen in other games today, and including with Queens. Queens is playing that 3-person cup zone.
And if there's anything for Queen, they need to hang on. They cannot allow another break point because that can be a hip buster for their on Queen's end. Time is short. We've already played 25 minutes of this open final. And if you drag more than 3 points behind your other team, well, you put yourself into trouble. Pull is rolling out. That's not, even if the distance is not there due to the wind, well, it's still, you can trap your opponent on the sideline, which is not a bad thing.
So Queens now setting up in a split stack. Bit of a discussion about where the disc is going to come in because it did roll out of bounds. Lewis will pick up, and Montreal sticking with their sort of person defense, but they have a little bit of a poach under. A couple of Queens players going deep. One of them will hang on to it. And not a lot of options, but able to squeak one in. The observers are going to call it in, and that is another one on the board for Queens.
Queen trailing only by 2 now. Montreal leading with 5 points. It's a 5-3 game. Alors Montréal qui maintient son avance de 2 points. Ils ont inscrit 2 points bris pour leur 3e et 4e point. Et la Queen là, qui doit s'accrocher. Et s'ils doivent inscrire un point bris, ben, le plus tôt serait le meilleur parce qu'on sait qu'avec les matchs qui sont relativement courts, d'une durée de seulement 70 minutes, on ne peut pas se permettre de tirer de l'arrière de 4 points, 3-4 points. Parce qu'on risque de manquer de temps, considérant aussi les températures, là, qui fait que les points sont en moyenne beaucoup plus longs qu'à l'habitude. Alors, Queen doit s'accrocher. Et s'ils peuvent inscrire un point bris pour maintenir Montréal à distance, ben, maintenant serait un bon moment de le faire.
So Queens setting up on defense, Dixon on the pole. We'll see what kind of defense they throw down on Montreal. Montreal has done a great job of opening up that zone using their over-the-top throws, scoobers, hammers, etc. So we'll see what happens here. Looks like Queens is going to set up in the cup again.
Il y a beaucoup de gens là, près de Massy, qui remet à Salva. Sans dommage, on trouve Éloire avec un lancer sous coupe. Rapidement, on enchaîne avec Massy. Défensive de zone de Queens. Salva encore une fois qui fait bon usage à ce lancer sous coupe. Il l'effectue avec confiance, de très belle façon. Éloire trouve Sénéchal, le numéro 6, autour de Massy. On se bouge le disque rapidement du côté de Montréalais. Massy donne une pause au disque. Il y aurait un appel. Incertain de ce que serait l'appel. Est-ce que c'est une marque double qui aurait été appelée par Montréal ou peut-être un peu de l'obstruction accidentelle? Bref, on reprendra le jeu à l'instant. Massy cherche une option. Il va lancer marteau. à son coéquipier, le numéro 2, si je ne me trompe. Mais c'est un lancer difficile à attraper, surtout avec la pression défensive là, du joueur de Queen. Alors, c'est un revirement en faveur de Queen. Est-ce que c'est maintenant qu'ils réussiront à faire leur premier point bris? Well, that's now the time for Queen to score a break point. Oh, that was tight. Great disc movement. They have momentum quickly halfway on the field.
Hate to see it, but Queens with some great movement up the field. You saw a lot of blue shirts trailing behind, not catching up quite on defense, but just an unfortunate drop that's going to send it back to Montreal.
Sénéchal. Un Noir qui trouve l'espace en plein cœur du terrain. Rapidement, Montréal franchit la moitié du terrain. L'allon de Landry. Raphaël, celui-ci, numéro 24. On remet en soutien. Montréal qui concède quelques verges. On y va. La passe longue. C'est Massy qui est la cible. Bon, mais ça a été mis hors de portée à cause du vent.
Montreal really just slicing through that Queen zone there as soon as they found one hole, able to kind of tic-tac it up a good chunk of the field. But just a little bit overthrown. I think that flick with the outside edge open got carried a little bit further than anticipated. So Queens is back on their end zone, looking to work it up the field. That's number 13 in the middle. Back to McLean, 17. A lot of disorganization in the Queen stack, leading to a turnover. I think just a few too many bodies in the area. And Massey's going to put it into the end zone for Montreal, and that is another downwind score.
Côté Dubuc qui donne le 6e point à Montréal, qui maintient une avance de 3 points versus Queen, toujours 2 points bris. On a plus de 30 minutes de jouer, so over 30 minutes have been played so far out of a 70-minute long. So already 9 points were scored. 6 of them belongs to Montreal, so looking that we can potentially do halftime when a team reaches out the 7-point mark threshold now. There was a warning given to Queens. Coach, I think they're a little long on setting up after the point, or was there inappropriate language used by the Queens coach? Didn't hear anything, but it's probably not the case because no one would do that on an ultimate sideline using inappropriate language. No one. Absolutely no one.
And as we approach half, just so everyone at home knows, we are streaming the women's final at 3 p.m. Eastern today as well. Right now, those semifinals are happening between Queens and Toronto on one side, and then the University of Victoria and McMaster on the other. So the winners of each semifinal will be on this field at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Great vertical by number 2 côté Dubuc. Vraiment a sauté de très belle façon pour intercepter cette passe avec autorité dans les airs. C'est dit pourquoi l'arrêter alors qu'on peut l'attraper. Et c'est ça même côté Dubuc là, qui fait une passe longue. Alimente et Juan Corona, numéro 22, à la portée des points. Et tout doucement remet le disque à Bisson. Et c'est un point bris pour Montréal qui vient d'inscrire son 3e point bris de ce match et qui remporte de la même façon la mi-temps. So Montreal scoring not only their 3rd break point, but taking a serious lead for the first half of this game. So Montreal 7, Queens 3. And we are in the 34th minute of this game. So Queen will really have to step up in the second half, but as far as we're concerned, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back in a few seconds for the second half of Final Championship CUUC. See you there. On est de retour pour cette deuxième mi-temps de la grande finale du championnat universitaire canadien d'Ultimate Frisbee. On est à Brampton, Ontario. 2021, Montréal qui portait les chandails bleus s'est forgé une sérieuse avance de 7-3 dans cette première mi-temps. Il a inscrit 3 points bris. Du côté de Queen, les 3 points ont été inscrits par des possessions offensives. Aucun point bris n'a été inscrit par les chandails jaunes qui sont du côté gauche de votre écran. Montréal commencera les hostilités de cette deuxième mi-temps avec le lancer d'engagement. Donc, Queen commencera en offensive. So, Naomi, there was Queen has struggled with their offense. It seems like they're a lack of movement. Are they like kind of frozen by the upset they've created today? Or it's hard to tell because they had great momentum in the previous games today, but it seems today like their O-line is looking for some kind of a spark.
Yeah. Queen's University had they had a bit of a tough day yesterday and came back this morning a lot stronger, gaining momentum. Have dropped in this game to Montreal 3-7. And they have been struggling from what we can see up here in the booth in their offense. It's either too stagnant, no movement, or too much movement and too much crowding around the disc. So hopefully they've made some adjustments in the halftime. They will be receiving right now going downwind. So it would be great if they could score this quickly off the bat. We've seen a few shots like that. They can score right off the bat. They're totally capable of doing that. Sometimes they're just missing the one piece. So we'll see how it goes here. We'll likely have number 19, Wilkie Lewis, picking up.
Great pull by Montreal. Wow, how long did it hang up? I don't know, but it seems like a week-long hanging time by the disc. Well, maybe not a week.
So Queens in that split stack again. Doesn't quite work. Tons of contact. But the disc goes back to Lewis. He's going to look deep. A big looping throw out into the end zone. And that's a great grab under pressure for Queens over on the break side. Closing the gap slightly. We are now 7-4 for Montreal.
And we just mentioned that Queens was looking for a spark. And maybe that's the kind of play that maybe can spark your team and get fired up and score your first break point. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that kind of excitement, getting the players all riled up with a big play like that, when you see your teammate do something amazing, that kind of amazing play, it can mean a lot. So Queens is now going to put out their D-line, hopefully generate a turnover quickly and take that shot into the upwind end zone. Because right now it's really not that windy. It shouldn't be a big deal to shoot up into the end zone, in the upwind end zone, quote unquote, in the left-hand side of your screen. The gusts may come back. We're starting to see some clouds roll in. We are expecting some rain later in the day. So we'll see what happens here and what kind of defense Queens puts on, because currently we don't have any wind.
And Queen has a big challenge because Montreal have won their 5 victories this weekend. 4 of them were earned by 1 point. So they know how to play under pressure. And they are in the driver's seat right now, still with a 3-point lead. And they are on offense downwind. So Montréal, Édouard maintenant, qui trouve côté du Buc comme cible. Et rapidement, on tente la passe pour conclure ce point, mais c'est un peu court. C'est Saint-Pierre-Naraud qui était la cible. Mais ça se termine en revirement et Montréal devra se défendre. On prend l'option de jouer joueur pour joueur.
Disc in the middle, that's on McLean. To Dixon, he's looking deep, fakes it off.
Montreal will want to mitigate that long game, and it's a great grab by Queen. Oh, great bid by
we have bodies flying. But nice retention from Queens with all that extra pressure. And that's a throw out into space. Number 13, Tomlinson. And that is 1 upwind notch on the belts for Queens, bringing the game closer. Now 7-5.
we were talking about 90 seconds ago about a spark. Here it is. I said, well, that would be a good time for Guelph to, or for Queen, my apologies, to score a break point, and here they are.
Yeah, Queens has been looking really strong coming out of half. Like we said, hopefully they made some adjustments, and if anything, it's just that second gear, that extra fire, and I think we're seeing that already. We're seeing some great plays, a few layouts, lots of effort from the yellow jerseys. So I think if they continue to apply that pressure in the coming points, we may see this game come even closer.
I suspect Queen are secretly tuning in our live stream and listening to your advice, Naomi. I'm pretty sure that's what they're doing right now, because it's like a copy-paste of what you're saying. And maybe they're eating like bananas and Gatorade. That's just like you suggested in the previous game, to make sure you stay hydrated, because it's a long tournament. Even though it's not that warm, you need to stay hydrated. So
absolutely, it's a long tournament, and it's possibly the first tournament that many of these people have played in the last 2 years, or maybe ever, because it is University Ultimate. So it's hard to take care of your body and manage everything. But we're seeing a lot of players log a lot of minutes on both sides, and Montreal doing a really good job of moving the Queen zone around and looking for the easiest pass that's open.
Montréal qui doit se défendre contre la zone de Queens. C'est Massy qui enchaîne à la Combourgoine. Il trouve beau mouvement de disque. C'est Conner maintenant avec le disque. Vraiment en soutien. Travaille bien la latéralité du terrain. Oh, la mauvaise communication. Là, on visait le numéro 11, Charles Gay. Pas certain qu'il s'y attendait. C'est un revirement et c'est parti du côté de Queen. La passe est longue. Oh, just out of reach. But it's not that bad for Queen, because they're forcing Montreal to go upwind, 70 yards away from a goal. Allez, Auger-Sémard avec le disque, qui trouve Massy, qui doit s'agenouiller pour bien attraper ce disque. La Combourgoine. Bien attrapé par la longue Landry. La Combourgoine fait ça avec Conner. Belle feinte de la Combourgoine. Fait mordre sa marque, ça crée de l'espace. Auger-Sémard qui trouve Bisson. On enchaîne à Massy par la suite. Toujours la zone du côté de Queen. On est un peu léger contact. Sans rancune. On enchaîne rapidement la longue Landry. Malik Auger-Sémard qui sort des essais pour l'équipe canadienne qui était à Ottawa. Donc, il a conduit les 3 heures de route pour venir jouer cette finale. C'est ce qu'on appelle de l'engagement. La longue Landry, numéro 0, Thomas. La Combourgoine. Belle feinte ici, on enchaîne, on passe ses cours. On arrive à la ligne de briques. Auger-Sémard, 4 joueurs à l'arrière pour assurer une continuité du côté des Montréalais. Massy qui passe ses cours. On tente de trouver, de percer cette zone de la part de Queen. Oh, ben, superbe défensive du côté de Queen. What a great anticipation. But I think it's number 1. Montreal really had a get-go here, but number 1 just denying all Montreal's effort to score upwind.
Yeah, Queens forcing Montreal to take 1,000 passes there. And Montreal honestly doing an incredible job of moving the zone back and forth the full width of the field and taking really good shots, I thought, through the zone. Ones that made sense, ones that weren't too, too sketchy, I guess I would say. Looks like a timeout call. But yeah, so now Queens has another opportunity to score downwind. Again, further closing the gap if they're able to lock this one in.
If ever Queens score that point, would have a 1-point game. And not too far away, Montreal were leading by 4. So things are moving fast here at CUUC 2021.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see another huck play. We've seen that in the past from Queens with that split stack, someone off the back going into the end zone in sort of an isolated way. And we'll see how Montreal reacts to that, if they are able to put an extra defender to help in the deep space, because Queens has had a lot of success with those deep shots so far. And they're actually, I feel like they're being more successful when they just throw it into the end zone versus trying to work it up the field.
Approximately 3/4 of the time have been played. So we are at the 57th minute of this 70-minute long game. Montreal still ahead by 2, but Queens is putting pressure on Montreal. They just got a timeout.
Yeah, really interesting setup here by Queens. Just sending one person deep, everyone else staying short, and not a ton of options. That's a really interesting look for sort of a very, very, very shallow horizontal stack. I think it would have been nice if they had a secondary option there in the deep space, but again, Montreal stuck in a very difficult spot on the field in that front cone. So we'll see how they fare.
And intuitively, I would have sent the taller receiver maybe in the end zone, but they sent what looks like to be, well, not the shortest receiver, but definitely not the taller. Malik Auger-Semard lance une bombe à Raphaël Lalonde-Landry qui ne peut maîtriser ce 10. Superbe lancé le long de la ligne d'Auger-Semard. C'est un revirement. La Queen qui menace toujours pour un autre point bris. Une bombe, ça flotte. Est-ce que ça sera à l'intérieur? Non, tout juste à l'extérieur du terrain. One more time, the wind has picked up the disc and brought it out of reach and out of the field. Auger-Semard seems to discuss. Is he claiming there's a double team? No, not much worth of a discussion. He said put the disc back into play. Montréal, corner, avec le 10, Auger-Semard et corner. On s'échange les politesses en soutien à la Combe-Bourgoine, qui remet le disque alors qu'il avait presque complètement couché au sol. Massy remet de façon latérale. On travaille S-Ouest. Auger-Semard qui trouve corner. Une douzaine de verges plus haut. Passe-repasse du côté des Bleus. Massy visait la Lalonde-Landry, mais remet plutôt de sa droite. It's the same pattern that we saw in the previous sequence for Montreal, just gaining yardage very sharply with crisp handling, and Queens being patient, waiting for the opportunity to steal that disc away. Belle passe ici. La Combe-Bourgoine, c'est maintenant la Lalonde-Landry qui enchaîne à ce même la Combe-Bourgoine. On est à la ligne de brick, 20 verges de la zone payante. Auger-Semard, la Lalonde-Landry maintenant. Thomas, celui-ci. Ouais, voilà! Queen was patient and they found a weakness in Montreal's game. Disc is floating and it's being caught. Montreal claims it was stripped off his hand. Observers were standing by. They are staring at the conversation.
So it'll stay with Queens. So they will be number 13 there. That's Tomlinson. Will hang on to the disc. And a lot of his teammates are behind him, so either he'll have to wait for them to catch up. But Dixon right on the end zone, putting it out into space, and it's caught by Tomlinson. That is another goal for Queens. We are close here.
7-6 Montreal. Queen had scored all 3 points of this second half.
This is a huge run.
Montreal looking for an answer. Queen started on offense in the second half. They scored their 4th point, and they have since scored 2 consecutive break points against Montreal, who looked very crisp and sharp in the first half, but now they can feel the heat. And we are 8 minutes shy of the 70th minute of this game.
And Montreal they're still looking clean. They're still looking sharp, but I think Queens has changed their offensive strategy when they're on defense. So after they've gotten a turn, to just huck it. And it seems that they are always sending someone deep now, and typically looking for it makes it so much more difficult for Montreal to work it up the field when they're able to put that big zone on, and Montreal being patient and taking 1 million throws, it just adds a higher possibility for a turnover. So,
and some statistic that the best team, they complete 95% of their passes. So if you do 10 passes, odds is that you will miss one, or one will be miscued somehow, some way. So if you're patient, odds are with you. Raphaël Lalonde-Landry qui accepte le lancer en sous-coupe de Éluard. Il enchaîne à Sénéchal. Sénéchal trouve au G-Sémar. Lancé marteau. Oh, il y a la défensive ici. Elle s'est rabattue, s'est attrapée. Lalonde-Landry qui affirme avoir attrapé le disque. I think there's a strip called by Lalonde-Landry. Hard to tell. The players were between us and the disc. So there's some, I guess, arguing happening here.
Yeah, I think that's the same player who called the strip on the last deep as well. From my perspective, it's totally hard to say. I think that it very well may have been caught at the same time, and in that sense, it would go to offense. It would stay with Montreal. But the observers have ruled it is a block, so it's going to be with Queens.
Queens defender, his body was in a better position to catch that disc, at least from our point of view. But maybe the disc never lies. Here's a turnover in favor of Montreal. Stoppage of play. I think there might have been some. It's a pick call against. It's number 22 by Queen, who calls that pick. He was covering number 15, Raphaël Salvas. Montréal qui a l'opportunité de réduire la pression en inscrivant un 8e point. Ça ferait du bien. Ça serait le premier point de la deuxième demi. Éluard. L'artilleur. Il va avec une passe. Est-ce que c'est à l'intérieur? C'est confirmé par les observateurs. Montréal qui respire un peu mieux, inscrit un 8e point, se confirme une avance de 2 points dans cette finale de championnat universitaire d'Ultimate Division Open. 8-6 Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal hanging on to that one. It kind of looked that it does feel like Queens is coming back into it, gaining that momentum. That's I believe the first point that Montreal has scored out of half.
It is.
So Queens looking really, really good, and now they're looking to play offense downwind, which is favorable for them. It would be very important for them to score this goal. The clock is counting down, running out. So we'll see what happens here. I don't think we would be all that surprised to see another huck play.
And we've started this game 10 minutes later than it was usually planned. So it was supposed to start at 1:30. We started at 1:40. So I guess I might have been misleading by saying the time that remains, but I have 2:36 on my watch. So it would be like 14 minutes left to the game instead of 4 minutes. So my apologies for misleading you. Nonetheless, we have a great show here in Brampton. Queen and Montreal fighting for the national title, Open Division.
So Queens on the disc. On the sideline, that's number 9. Looking into the end zone, and Queens makes it easy, scoring downwind, keeping this this game a game within 1. So we have 8-7 for Montreal.
Queen have scored 2 breakpoint in this game, and both of those breakpoints were scored in the second half, while Montreal have scored 3 breakpoint so far, and all 3 breakpoint were completed in the first half. In the second half, Queen is leading 4-1 so far.
Yeah, I can certainly say as a spectator, you can feel the energy on the Queen side has been higher in the second half, and I think we felt the energy in the on the Montreal side was higher in the first half. A little bit of context: we saw Montreal win by 1 in the semifinal against Manitoba on a huge huck play. It was a massive play and very, very exciting. So they came into this game really excited, really worked up. Whereas Queens had a little bit of an easier game, not an easier game, but a more comfortable win against Waterloo in the semifinal. So I think maybe they came into the game feeling a little bit more relaxed, while Montreal was a bit more amped up. But we're seeing in the second half here, Queens has really been picking it up. Their big players are clocking a lot of minutes, and I think we'll see that zone again as usual. Dixon on the mark, and McLean in there as the top as a big blocker. So we'll see what Montreal does to try and work it through this 3-person cup.
L'offensive montréalaise confrontée à la défensive de zone de Queen. Salva lancé sous coupe, le gaucher. Rapidement, Lalonde Landry qui enchaîne à Malik Auger-Sémard. Éloire maintenant. Toujours la zone de Queen qui la maintient, même si on a passé le milieu de terrain. Le lancer sous coupe. On trouve Lalonde Landry, Thomas celui-ci. Enchaîne à Sénéchal. Sénéchal à la porte des points. Remet une petite passe ici. Lalonde Landry qui alimente maintenant Bisson. Et rapidement et de belle façon, Montréal qui confirme son 9e point et sécurise 2 points d'avance. On commence à être tard dans la deuxième demi. 9-7 Montréal.
Montreal easily working through that zone. We saw a lot of cheeky little scoobers, no-look passes. We can, again, like we said earlier in this game, Montreal looks really comfortable throwing. I think potentially they have a bit more depth in their throwing side of the roster. But working it all the way through. And the Queen zone is a lot more effective when Montreal is going upwind, forcing those handlers back. But we will see Queens now looking to score in the downwind end zone. And just as we had said earlier that the wind was dying down, she is back with a vengeance, and it's very, very swirly.
Like 15 minutes ago, the weather forecast was saying it's going to get cloudy and maybe potentially some rain. I said, what? Are you kidding me? But now, look at the clouds. And I feel like the temperature just dropped a few notches over the last few milliseconds.
Yeah, I'd definitely say it was pretty pleasant in the sunshine earlier.
Yeah, we were almost comfortable out there. Almost.
But it is now chilly up in the booth, and because of that roll, we're going to have Queens taking the pull off the sideline. Usual suspect, Wilkie Lewis, number 19, picking up. Queens running a flood stack play, and not a lot of options, but that's going to be number 9 picking up back to Lewis. None of those options deep that we've seen that success from earlier in this game. And a run through D from Montreal, and they're going to get another chance to score upwind.
La Combourgoine là, qui a bien anticipé cette passe, est venue voler littéralement le disque des mains de son adversaire. Maintenant, Kohner avec le disque, milieu de terrain. Auger-Sémard rappelle un temps d'arrêt. Bon appel de vétéran. Montréal là, qui est en excellente position. On vient de franchir le milieu de terrain. On est à environ une trentaine de verges de la zone payante pendant que le vent se lève. Et au GCMR qui a reconnu que c'était un moment critique de ce match. On est à la 60, on attaque la 62e minute de ce match, qui en aura 70. Et là, vraiment, le vent là, qui se lève sur les magnifiques installations, il faut le dire, là, de Brampton. Là. Il y a plusieurs années que Ultimate Canada tient des championnats nationaux ici à Brampton. And Naomi, I think you will agree with me that the Brampton facilities are spectacular. The turf fields are great, and the natural grass field are great, even though they were a little swell, like a little over water, I would say. But you know, the quality of the grass is very, very amazing. And I think there's like 26 or 27 fields around here. So if you want to host a national event, well, that's the place to be. And you see those turf fields are permanently lined for ultimate. So that's a great thing we're starting to see all over turfs across the country. So we just love it. OG, c'est mort. Remettra le disque en jeu après avoir appelé un temps d'arrêt. Montréal qui menace d'inscrire un point bris. OG, c'est mort qui décoche. C'est rabattu au sol par Queens qui dit non. C'est pas maintenant que ça va se passer. Queen back in possession, looking long. But no receiver. La Combourgoine, pendant que le vent vraiment là, se lève sur les terrains. Bisson qui s'offre en cible à l'intérieur. OGC mort là, qui la passe était courte et le vent là, qui vraiment se fait sentir. On a entendu la sirène. Là, we heard a horn blows a few minutes ago, but that was for the other fields, not for this game we are live streaming right now.
So the wind back with a vengeance. Queens looking to score downwind. It's going to be really tough. The wind is gusting, and you can see that disc, the flight pattern is a little choppy, but Queens right outside the end zone, and it looks like it's going to be a bobble and a half. About 5 players touch that disc, and the observers are having a discussion.
They say it might have been a travel call. Is that what the sign of the observers? It was a travel call on the throw. That's what Messi is. Number 77 from Montreal is calling from the player he was marking. But yeah, that was a bubbly catch by, I don't know, I think. Let's name the player who didn't touch the disc in the last act. It will be quicker.
Yeah, from my perspective, it did look like he checked it back in because he was kind of straddling the line. But in a lot of a big mix, we do still have a goal. That is number 9, Lucas Koster. And that's another offensive hold. So we have, it's, I believe, 10-8.
Or 9-8.
Or
9-8, yeah.
9-8 for Montreal. And as we mentioned before, the wind is very, very strong. You might be hearing it in our microphones. So this upwind point is going to be difficult, but the downwind point is going to be just as difficult. It'll be very challenging for the throwers to make sure there's lots of spin on the disc, but still enough lift so that it doesn't get pushed right into the ground.
We are entering the 5 last minute of this game. Montreal on the left-hand side will be receiving Queen's pull on the right-hand side. Queen will have to pull against that heavy wind. So Queen's sideline cranking up their teammates on the line. There's some folks gathering in the stands, sacrificing their body to the cold to enjoy this great final open division Whoa. That was quite a spin. Éluard. Qui d'autre qui remettra le disque en jeu? Défensive de zone par Queen. Beau travail le pivot de numéro 35, Éluard. On va à Sénéchal. Sénéchal, Éluard. Éluard cherche une option Sénéchal qui s'offensive. À l'intérieur, on remet en soutien à l'allon de Landry. Alimente Salva. Salva, le lancer marteau de sa main gauche. Et c'est malheureusement porté à l'extérieur du terrain. La cible était le numéro 19, Saint-Pierre Narot. Il se faisait un certain temps qu'on ne l'avait pas vu sur le terrain, moi que je ne me trompe. Peu importe. Queen in possession going upwind against a person-to-person defense.
That's a nice shot. Dixon right on the sideline. Back to the middle. Not a lot of options for Lewis, so he looks to the break side. And it's Eric Zhu comes down with it. These throws are all popping up. And that's going to be a block. It's the wind is really consistently strong right now, so throwing anywhere towards where the camera is to the close side of the field is really challenging.
Auger Simon now Salva. Finding Auger Simon, he was a little lucky. Another scuba! 2 scuba in a row. Oh.
Yeah, a little casual on that scuba into the end zone.
Yeah, I think Auger Simon would like to take back that throw.
It's like we said, opening up the bottom side of the disc to the wind is just more area to push it down, and those throws will be very challenging to execute. But we're also seeing
situational strong body contact. One player stayed down. He's calling an injury. I'm not sure what happened, but it was. I saw Lalonde Landry who ran into. I think it's Queen's number 1. Well, both are still standing up, but the other Queens player is down, discussing with Edouard. I don't think Edouard is sure also why is defender or opponent, why is he down? I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, I think what's happening is potentially the Queens player is saying that the contact caused him to not have a chance or was in his way, and I guess it's going to stay with him. So that's number 8, Ganasakura on Queens. He's going to keep it.
So Queens possession in their own red zone. There was a pick call, but that's a turnover, so it will be Montreal's possession. Salvas rapidement remet à Éluard. L'allon Landry. Thomas. Et là, on vient de signaler que les 70 minutes sont complétées. Montréal en avance. Queen doit absolument inscrire un point s'ils veulent espérer aller en bris d'égalité. Sinon, si Montréal inscrit le point, ben, ça sera la victoire et le titre de champion 2021. Sénéchal à Auger Sémard. Auger Sémard. 13 verges. Dans la zone de points, c'est Éluard maintenant. Défensive de zone de Queen. Auger Sémard qui feinte. On est patient du côté des Montréalais. Lancé sous coupe. Auger Sémard à Sénéchal et c'est un revirement Queen. Back in possession, they need that point in order to get into a tiebreaker after that, but it's a turnover. Auger Sémard. Éluard. Salva maintenant. Montréal à la ligne de briques. Salva qui alimente Auger Sémard. On travaille latéralement un autre scooper, cette fois-ci complété par l'allon Landry. Ou à l'allon Landry plutôt, devrais-je dire. Auger Sémard, Éluard, on est patient. Et voilà, c'est confirmé. On a de nouveaux champions 2021 dans la division Open, l'Université de Montréal, qui remporte son premier titre de champion canadien de Ultimate universitaire face à Queen. So congratulations to Montreal for their victory, but also let's highlight the amazing effort and display of sportsmanship that Queen has shown us through the weekend, and a great resiliency also. They were the underdogs after being 0-3 to yesterday. They were, and they created the upset in quarterfinals And after that, they won their semis in order to reach out the final. But wow, what a path, what a journey for Queen. And what a journey for Montreal also, who will drive back home to Montreal with a 6-0 result here at CUUC in Brampton, Ontario. But they will also carry home a nice gold medal.
Yeah, a great game from both sides, and like you said, some really great sportsmanship and a lot of resilience from both teams with conditions that changed ongoing throughout the game. So congratulations to both of our gold and silver medalists here in the open final. Coming up next, we do have the women's final, the gold medal match. It looks like it will be McMaster, who they must have toppled the University of Victoria, unfortunately for me as a big UVic fan, but it looks like it will be McMaster, and then the winner of the other semi, which was Queen's and the University of Toronto. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back on. I believe that game will also be a delayed start just after 3 p.m. Eastern. So we will see you soon. Thank you for tuning in, and come back later.
Alors, on vous retrouve dans quelques instants pour la grande finale féminine là, où McMaster a confirmé sa place en grande finale. On attend le résultat pour leur opposition. Ça devait commencer à 15 h, mais ça sera de toute évidence retardé d'au moins une dizaine de minutes. Alors, on vous donne rendez-vous vers 15h10 pour cette grande finale championnat canadien universitaire féminin 2021. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été des nôtres et on vous parle dans quelques instants. À tout de suite.